Welcome everybody to PTZOptics Live.
Back to basics. I'm Tess Protesto.
And I'm Paul Richards, and we're excited to have you here for, this is episode who knows what, but we're talking...
28.
20, really? Mm-hmm. Episode 28 of Back to Basics?
Yep.
We've done 28 Back to Basics
We
shows?
are moving and shaking.
Wow. Well, today we are covering Open Broadcaster Software, which is really the world's free open source live streaming software, most popular streaming software in the world. And I'm really excited to share it with you because not only have updates to RTSP streaming, which is live streaming directly from our cameras on your local area network, to updates on the streaming with NDI, the NewTek NDI, all of that is making OBS a really viable tool, even for professional broadcasters, not just people trying to stream for free and doing gaming and stuff. Really professional broadcasters, I believe, are going to start using this software. We're using 3 copies of OBS right now in this production, and it's going to be a testament to how powerful this tool is.
Yeah, I'm sort of finding that out myself. I didn't realize sort of the capabilities that OBS had. It is a great place to start, and of course it's free, but it's proven very useful for us today. So we're going to dive into that.
We're hoping that this is going to be a very interactive webcast here, so I can see Tess is already showing some of the chats here that we're going to be showing. Tess is on layer 1 here, and she's got control of our YouTube chat. So as soon as our lower third unveils that, we're going to be answering questions the whole time. That's what the point of this is. So we're going to have chats coming up on the screen soon. So what we want to start with is our studio and setup that we have here. So we've got our studio on the screen here, and I'm going to kind of walk you through it. We've got a larger version of it that we can share with you to make it really crisp on the screen. But essentially we have, this is the front studio. Tess, can we go to the other studio?
Yes.
And then Michael, if we can pull this up full screen, I want to just make sure everyone gets a good look at this. There we go. So what we have here, this is our studio, and we have 4 cameras in our studio. So we have 2 PTZs and 2 20x Z cams. Those are the VL cameras, but it's close enough. And the reason why we chose to do that...
Sorry, I just got really confused.
The pictures you have, those are the variable lens cameras with the wide angle, but that's okay. And we actually have one of those. We actually have a wide angle camera. That's Michael's behind the scenes camera that he showed. In fact, you want to switch to that real quick and show that? This is a cool camera that we have. That's Mike's behind the scenes camera there. And that is a PTZOptics variable lens wide angle camera. You can see the wide shot there. But anyway, everything is pretty much connected to this network that Tess has in the middle. You can see here.
This isn't the right brand switcher as well.
No, it's not the right brand switcher.
Unify?
We have a Ubiquiti Unify 24-port managed PoE switch. Mm-hmm. So
this is not a very professional diagram, but we did the best we can here because it gets pretty complicated with all the technology that goes into having our live stream.
Yeah, and this is going to evolve and change and get better. But Tess is showing here a custom PC, which has 2 4-port HD SDI Pro Capture cards from Magewell. Mm-hmm. So we're still using hardwired HD SDI inputs, but we're going to talk today about how to do RTSP streaming and how to stream directly from the cameras into OBS. The latency is incredibly low, and it's definitely usable for a lot of applications. So we've got 2 monitors. Michael's over there mixing away. He's got a keyboard and mouse. He's got his IP joystick. We've got a 3rd and 4th monitor. One of the monitors is a confidence monitor, and the other is a monitor right here that Tess is actually operating. We have an audio mixer. We've got 2 wireless microphones, and I just wanted to show you guys all this because the point is that all of this stuff lives in our studio, but it's also connected on our network.
Yes, and that's sort of how we communicate this studio to our front studio, which we're going to dive into in just a moment here. I'm trying to figure out how to remove the overlay now because I'm clicking cancel. There you go. Thank you. All right, let's go back to the previous slide here so you can take a look at our front end studio.
So this is our front studio we're going to take you through, and then we also have a video conferencing area, but because a video conferencing room has a USB camera and a USB microphone, we went ahead and put Open Broadcaster software on there, connected the microphone and camera there. And now we have a third, basically camera, live streaming, broadcasting, switchable system on our network available to Michael as a broadcaster. So Michael, why don't you just go ahead and show a couple of the NDI sources that you have available to you as options. And what I mean by that is the hallway camera and the front camera. And we're going to walk you guys through it, show everything here. But the cool thing is that from Michael's perspective, he's running NewTek. That is that's our hallway. And I'll just pop out real quick. Hey everybody, I'm in the hallway. But that just shows you that's one computer on our network. And then later on, Michael's going to show you we've got OBS running a chroma keyed green screen area with a secondary microphone that we might need to tune up. So we might not spend too much time over there if it really does sound bad. I don't understand how the audio could be out of sync personally.
We'll have to rewatch it.
Unless there was multiple microphones turned on and there was an echo. So we're gonna do some live testing with you guys today. But the point is that over NDI, over the network, we're connecting multiple systems together to create a larger live streaming workflow. And there were so many times and so many scenarios where, and the NewTek guys would explain this to me, where people would say, can we do this? Can we do that? And they would say, well, you have to run a 100-foot cable here and another 100-foot cable there and
to connect
a bunch of other things. Yeah. And now you can just say, yeah, you can do that. Just plug in a network cable. Oh, it's already on the network.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Are the cameras connected to this NUC?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so there's enough SDI or USB inputs?
Well, actually, you're right. That's a good question. So we have the VL camera connected to the NUC with a frame grabber.
Okay.
But the two other PTZs available in there.
Or capture card.
Probably wouldn't have been a bad idea, but we were always upgrading this. But the two other PTZ cameras in there are just connected via IP, so just connected over the network.
Okay, so we have them plugged into our network ports in the wall.
Yes.
And we're just grabbing them over NDI.
No, we're not. We're going to show RTSP today.
Okay.
With the cameras, since the NDI firmware is still not available.
Okay, so in OBS.
In OBS.
Which you're going to show.
Yes.
Whew.
So here comes the part where Tess is going to pull in an RTSP
Anybody
feed.
that's learning about this live right now, I just want you to know, so am I.
This is her first time ever. So Tess, go ahead and bring OBS onto the screen. And I want to share a little bit about OBS, how to get to it, and what we can do here. And we'll brainstorm on some ways to use it as well.
So
here we have, let's go to desktop 1. So on the bottom left-hand side, we have our scenes. And these are basically...
Otherwise inputs?
Well, the inputs are over here. That's called sources.
Okay.
But scenes are basically things that you can build, pre-built mixes of inputs.
Like virtual inputs? Almost?
Virtual inputs. You could have... Right now, you're pulling in an RTSP camera. And by the way, Michael, this RTSP camera is camera 5 in the IP joystick. If you want to, you hit the IP button and then 5, and then enter, and you'll be able to take PTZ control of this. So the first thing we'll talk about, so go ahead and click studio mode. So Tess has OBS in studio mode now. In fact, Mike, it wouldn't be probably bad to show the whole screen of OBS full screen, because it's getting a little bit cut off, and I just want people to be able to see the whole thing. And I see that Gene Greenwood is hungry for NDI. So we're just going to show this full screen, because Tess and I are still here, but here's OBS completely full screen. So over here we have multiple scenes, and Tess, let's go ahead and delete the RTSP, because I want to do it from the beginning with everybody.
Oh gosh, okay, all right.
So that's an RTSP feed there. Now if we go ahead and hit the plus button, this is how you add sources into OBS.
So here's the options. So for our vMixers out there, this would be like your input options.
And same with Wirecast. This would be what Wirecast calls a shot. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add. You can actually add an entire scene into as an input, which is kind of cool. But what we're going to do is we're going to click Media Source to pull in an RTSP feed. And go ahead and call that RTSP feed, front camera. And click OK. And we're going to uncheck everything. And then for the input, we're going to type in RTSP : the IP address of your camera. which 192.168.1.65/1. Now with PTZOptics cameras, there are two streams, RTSP streams that come off the camera. There's /1 and /2. /1 is HD, /2 is SD. So when we hit /1 and enter, now we've got this camera. Now if we go to the IP joystick, and so
that's how you add an RSTP
enter.
RST
Yep,
RS
you got it. Now go ahead and control it.
RTSP. Jeez, I can't talk today. RTSP camera feed into OBS.
So now Mike's got control of this camera, and so it will kind of show
Within OBS?
Not within
The
OBS,
joystick.
using the IP joystick.
Okay.
OBS does not have fan tilt zoom. I'm pushing for a PTZ plugin one of these days for OBS. I think that would be sweet. That's our front studio, which we're going to walk up to soon. Everything's going off of NDI from that area, from our computer. So.
Okay.
That's going to be interesting. I sincerely hope that the audio is all working good over there. And we're going to make our way over there.
This is an alternative to IP cameras to NDI.
Yes, definitely. It's very low latency. It works very well. It's built into the PTZOptics cameras. It just doesn't show up as an NDI source.
Okay.
But it's very low latency, and you can actually have really low bit rate, or really high bit rate, which is higher quality, lower latency streaming there. The other thing I want to show, oh yeah, don't forget our new bug, by the way, is I want to show a little OBS trick. Because if you're using OBS and you want it to look more like vMix or more like some of the other software out there, we can go up to File, Settings, and they have, this is if you have the brand new 20.1.3 OBS, we can change the theme to Ranchy and click OK. And look how much better that looks. So much cooler. And then we hit studio mode, and now we've got something that looks like a professional video production system.
With a preview and an output. And
all of these scenes, plus you can now do stingers inside of this. We reviewed all of that in our Stream Geeks channel this week, so very cool stuff.
What happens if you add?
You're already ahead of me. So now Tess is adding an NDI input. And when you choose an NDI input, everything available on your network is going to show up. Okay. So I'm not sure how well you guys can see this, but we have the hallway. And go ahead and click the hallway, and we'll show that.
All right.
Now, there's our hallway. So all of these cameras, whether we're pulling them in with vMix or
it wants me to resize it?
Yeah, you can resize it.
That's interesting.
It doesn't pull in in 1080p for some reason off the bat.
Okay.
But so now we've got an RTSP feed, we've got an NDI source, all of these things with OBS, which is completely free. And so I like to use OBS as an ingest, right? So I like to use it as the way to get all of these computers connected into vMix, because I still love using vMix and Wirecast and the more professional live streaming software. But even I think a lot of people still use this as their main broadcasting software.
One for you.
And you can certainly, as your personal preference between vMix and OBS, yes, definitely wouldn't leave vMix just yet, not even by a long shot.
I mean, there's a difference in features at this point. So who knows where OBS will be in the future.
There's a significant difference in features. I saw someone ask about bringing social media comments into OBS. It is possible, actually, with our Chat Connect Pro program, but that only works with YouTube at this point. And you can bring it in as a browser input to show YouTube comments. But vMix is just so much more professional with a queuing option. Why or how is OBS free? Are there adverts, etc.? No, Kenny, this is open source. This is a community of developers. I wanted to actually include all the contributors, but the list of contributors to OBS is like a mile long. There have been like 150, 200 people helping with OBS. So it's a community effort. People build plugins, and it's really just a vibrant community of live streamers.
That's awesome.
So with that being said, we want to jump into our live tour. It looks like we're getting another question here, Tess.
Yeah, Havazu is saying that every time that they use NDI, it never works properly, so they're wondering if they set something up incorrectly because the audio is good, but the video always freezes, even when set, and it cuts off.
So there's a couple things that you need to definitely think about
check
when you're using OBS and and either a TriCaster or a Wirecast or your network, make sure that your network is a gigabit network, and make sure that the port that you're using for your network has quality of service included in that. So it's getting priority over anything else that might be congesting your network. So I'd highly recommend setting up a VLAN. And to do that, you need to log into your gigabit managed switch. If you don't have a managed switch, you can't use quality of service. Now, apparently, when Andrew Cross came on our show to talk about NDI, he said that any off-the-shelf gigabit network switch should work, and they're not doing their job right if it doesn't. And he even promised to take support calls until it does work on any off-the-shelf, Best Buy, whatever, gigabit switch. So that should happen. But I've had issues with it as well. We've had many people talk about issues. But we're going to show 3 or 4 different ways to use it today. And as far as I know, everything's working.
We'll cover the lower thirds in a little bit here.
Yeah, we can definitely cover the lower thirds. Somebody told me that that they use vMix call instead of NDI camera because it got better low latency. So that's an option for the vMix users out there. But I wanted to talk a couple different scenarios of how to use it. One is as a confidence monitor. So, Tess, if we go back to your vMix sources, let's create a new scene.
OBS sources.
Yep, your OBS sources. We'll create a new scene and we'll call it confidence monitor. And the reason why we're going to do this is because imagine you have a studio, a secondary studio, or a third studio, and you just want to set up one monitor to show either the preview or the output of vMix. So maybe you want to set 2 of them up.
Now, wouldn't I need a source to connect to that?
So go ahead and add a source. And we'll add an NDI source.
NDI.
And now the computer you're using NDI with, whether it's vMix or Wirecast or Livestream Studio or a TriCaster, does need to be set up to handle, you can literally check what you want to be broadcasting as NDI. You don't want to broadcast too many sources because every NDI source is 100 megabits per second. So if you've got a gigabit switch, you could run out of space quickly on that. Especially if you're using it for other things, and maybe RTSP or the new NDI HX high efficiency protocol, which will be in our cameras, will allow you to do a lot more. But as you can see here, so Tess, you just added a confidence monitor. What source did you choose that? So you chose the output. Mm-hmm. So you chose the vMix output, but you could have chosen the vMix preview. You could have chosen any of a number of things. So whatever you want your talent to see,
here
you just
set up back here. Yep, if so you want to pick a specific camera for them to look through.
Yep. You can choose any try just a random camera.
I don't know what these are exactly, but where is this going to take us?
There we go. So that's just one of the cameras that's right here.
Okay.
And if you try right-clicking it really quickly.
I always like to do the vMix output.
Okay.
For a confidence monitor, so you can see exactly what's being displayed in real time.
One of the cool things in TriCaster's vMix, and I believe this is in Wirecast as well, is it's not built into OBS, but if you have an NDI source on your network, you can actually right-click it, and it will show you all the other NDI sources, and you can hot swap them. That's something, Michael. Can we show that from your camera? So we go ahead and pop over to Michael's behind-the-scenes camera here. And what we're going to do is hopefully make this viewable. Here we go, Mike. I'm going to bring it in close. All right.
There's some cool effect filters.
Go ahead and right-click that one. Nope, not there. In the middle. Boom! Can you guys see that? It's a little tough to see. But basically, that is every single NDI output available on our network. So that is super fun for vMix users, Wirecast users, the ability to quickly hot swap if you don't want to have every NDI. And the reason why, by the way, that's so incredible and so important is because of how much bandwidth NDI takes up. You might only want to have 1, 2, or 3 of them open at a time and have the ability to hot swap which one you're connecting to, like sockets. Mm-hmm. And each one takes up 100 megabits of bandwidth. So unplug that one quickly, plug this one back in, because once that connection's live, it's 100 megabits. It's really high quality, really low latency, but you don't want to have too many of them broadcasting at the same time, even if it's just for preview.
Andrew, hey Andrew, says Wirecast Studio can detect and accept any compatible NDI v3 source, same as you are showing there.
Oh, is this Andrew Haley?
Yeah.
Oh, great. So we're going to have Wirecast on the show soon, and I'm hoping to actually use Wirecast on our show more. And we'll be showing, that'll be great. He can show that on Friday.
Yeah, it's perfect.
That would be great.
Perfecto mundo.
So that sounds good. So we talked about confidence monitors. We talked about additional scenes coming in. And I was thinking we could go to the front room and show how
Right now?
seamless it is? Or should we not do that?
Show how seamless it is. It works great.
What did you think, Michael? Should we do that?
Do it, yeah.
Why not we do some live testing?
All right.
By the way, while we...
Yell to us if the audio's off.
Okay. And while
And
we're
we'll-
transitioning, let me give you guys a little bit of a task. Those of you who are watching on Facebook right now, if you'd like a copy of our studio diagrams for yourself for reference, or to get ideas of what you might need to incorporate in your live streaming studio or setup, in Facebook, and we're going to see if this works, type diagram. So type diagram into the Facebook chat if you want the diagrams that we use today, and you'll be able to download them there. All right.
All right. So we're going to head over to the next part of our studio here, and it should be quite fun. Ta-da! Da-da-da-da. So we're going to turn these mics off, right? 'Cause we don't need them. Kinda. I guess we can do that once we get up there. Hopefully. If the mic... I don't understand how the audio could be off.
Alrighty,
Okay, so we're here.
we are here.
We've got...
Let me pull up vMix Social so I can see what our friends about this little switch.
Whoops. Why does it keep doing that?
Let us know in the chat.
Whoops.
Live
Okay.
testing audio with our new
Yes.
mic. What kind of mic would this be? A boom mic or
This
or
is a
something?
boom mic,
Okay.
yes. We have a new
Learning
boom
here.
mic. And
Thanks, Andrew. He says our new studio's looking awesome.
thank you. I'm excited to see a studio tour of your studio this Friday, unless you'd like to go off one more week. I think we're a week away from the NDI firmware, but I keep saying that, and NewTek keeps on pushing. We'll see.
Says, is this to see how many people misspell diagrams? No shame if you misspell it. If you don't get the message, type it in chat. Hopefully it's working. Learning new tactics with my message.
So I'm going to go ahead and do a quick audio test before we run the credits for the Back to Basics show, and then we'll just go into post-show mode.
Okay.
But I'm going to go ahead and do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. What do you think, Mike?
He texted me and said turn off the shotgun.
Really? It's that bad?
Okay, so for this.
All right, let's go back to the main studio. All right, let's roll the credits. We'll go back to the main studio. I don't know why that's not working.
We can do a test stream after the show
Yeah,
today
we're going to have to do some more testing.
on our private channel or something. Flying nabbit.
So it wasn't looking good? Wasn't sounding?
Good, just the audio.
Damn. All right. Well, we'll come back here then. Let's roll the credits, and we're going to take your questions soon. Not sure what is going on with our audio over NDI using OBS, but more testing needs to be done.
Absolutely. Okay, Ronald, this is a hilarious comment.
70s low-budget kung fu movie.
That's how bad the audio sync was. Sorry about that,
Wow.
guys. We tend to push the limits a little bit here.
I can't understand what's going on.
We're going to figure it out.
How many seconds do you think it was? Was it off, or was it just sound bad?
Just sound bad.
It was, Sean Reagan said it was really out of sync.
Oh, that's the noise gate. Yeah, we need to let's turn the noise gate down. So,
Paul, did you make this vMix Social lower
Yes.
third just in Photoshop?
yes.
Okay. And then do you put it into After Effects and create an
Okay.
MP4 to make it transition in and out?
What are we talking about?
I'm just trying to explain to you how you make your
that's all
lower
it is.
thirds.
Okay, so with the lower thirds, we can make, so there's two things. So there is, oh, thank you. Tony's learned a lot using this, watching the show. So the lower thirds can be done in a multitude of different ways, but we use the vMix title editor so that once we've created the image that we want to use, we can then just hot swap whatever we use for each show. Same goes for this one right here, which has our PTZOptics blue. I just copied the standard social lower third, and then it populates with vMix Social with YouTube and Facebook. I think that we had a noise gate that was too high. So Tess, you stay here. I don't want to waste everyone's time. Do the Q&A. I'm going to go over to the other side and see if I
But you
fixed
inserted the lower third in, and then you had an outro. Yeah.
Show them the new, oh, you got the new bug. This I want to talk about too, this down here. This is our cool little lower third bug, which says we're live on Wednesdays. All right, I'm going to test this out, Mike, when I get over there.
For the transitions, he'll often go into After Effects and just make the photoshopped image slide in and out, and then just render it as a video file, and then we just cue the video file as an overlay.
All
So then it
right,
slides in and
testing,
out
1,
in
2,
an
3,
animated,
1, 2, 3.
way.
What? Oh, Tess,
So
turn
it's
this
really
microphone
done in
around.
After Effects.
Turn it back.
Okay, the
All
chroma
right, testing,
key is
testing,
bad.
1, 2,
Yeah,
3.
up front.
5, 4, 3, 2,
No,
1.
actually.
Is it working?
Kind of.
I can't hear him.
Kind of?
Delay.
Anton, thank you for being with us today. Loving the show from
5,
Bahamas. We're happy to
4,
have you.
3, 2, 1, 0.
Yeah,
There's a
Ted
delay,
says,
huh?
I like the idea if you're trying to
Delay.
accomplish. I'll just be quiet because we're live testing. Yes, we are certainly continuing to adjust.
Oh shit, that's because I had my headphone on. Sorry. All right.
And he's live cussing.
Sorry. We're gonna have to test this out again. I don't know if anyone else has had issues with OBS, audio syncing with NDI, but we seem to have some issues.
All right.
So it's a little bit cutting edge, a little bleeding edge. We'll answer any questions. I think that what we did was valuable, showing how NDI works, showing how to pull RTSP feeds into OBS. I keep getting that question because all of our cameras have a, you can use a Shure antenna distribution system with the same microphones. And let me see, thank you for that tip. Let me see, I've been wanting to think about that. Nope, there's no antenna on this one. We got the BLX system, which was cheaper. The BLX system is super cheap. I was like $500. I was super happy to the price tag,
On
but
the
now
tip
I'm
of the
wishing I got
spear.
the ULX. We're so happy to see even the experts have issues and not just us newbies.
Oh, we have plenty of
Yeah,
issues
we've
for
got
you
them in
guys.
spades. We're always trying different software, different platforms, different ways to do things. And
I mean,
I thought we
it's best that
tested-
we
I
can be
could've
the
sworn
test dummy
I
for
could've
you guys.
sworn that we
If you're
tested it.
doing some really, high stakes corporate stream or house of worship, something really important,
Yeah, honestly, if
at least we
you're-
can be the ones.
At least we can be the ones making the mistake.
As long as
and
the cameras are okay, I think that we're okay.
I think there's enough people having issues with NDI, and let's be honest, we just had one, to be careful using it in professional scenarios just yet. Honestly, there's enough people who are having issues with it. Until we can really figure it out.
Dan said that that's a common problem with OBS.
The OBS NDI plugin?
He said, when I first started using OBS, I had to set a delay on my mic input. When I searched, it was a common problem.
Oh.
Okay, we're getting some other comments. Kirk says, move the receiver halfway between the studios.
Yes, and
Move the
longer
micro
XLR
routes
cables,
and-
yes. That would pretty much solve our issues, I think. And I'd be pretty much happy with that because we freaking bought a brand new Shure microphone. But I have other plans for that Audio-Technica microphone anyway. One of the things we didn't talk about with RTSP, and I want to, is that RTSP streaming.
Did you turn your mic back on, love?
Yeah, it's on.
Okay.
People having trouble. I think it
Ted
might have
said
been off
Paul
for a second.
is either not the same level as Tess, who is louder. or is being picked up off
I've
of me?
been told that before, and so I'm going to go ahead and turn myself up a little.
I know. I got to be down or Paul has to be up.
All right, there we go. Thank you for that, because we just made a permanent change that should make it much better. Can you use the 20x USB Gen 1 to RTSP into Facebook Live? I'm going to go ahead and say probably no, for two reasons. One, you'd have to use RTMP, not RTSP. And the Generation 2 cameras just had that added in. So I don't believe the Gen 1 cameras can directly RTMP stream to Facebook. It's possible, but I don't believe so. Now, the thing I wanted to mention here about the cameras is that they do have a line-in input. So we can run line-in into the RTSP and the RTMP streaming output.
Okay.
So with that Audio-Technica device, I may actually, there's a way to convert XLR to 3.5 millimeter, and that's one of the tests I'm going to be doing, is running a really high-end powered Audio-Technica microphone directly into the PTZOptics
And not
camera.
using a computer at all.
Not using a computer at all.
I like that idea.
And I think that might even be better than OBS, because OBS is having an issue. It sounds like, because I think people are holding us to a high standard, which I'm very happy. I think that there's a little bit of an audio delay on OBS. I don't use OBS enough to realize that. And so you'd actually have to go into the microphone and put a little bit of a delay in there before it goes out to NDI.
Is there a new firmware for the Gen 2 20X SDI?
Yes. There is. There is a brand new firmware, depending on how long you've had the camera. If you only had it for a couple months, then it's probably got the latest. But the new firmware for the Gen 2 models reduces the latency on RTSP significantly to the point where you can barely notice it. It's so good. It's literally basically the same latency as NDI, in my opinion. It's just not quite as stable. But yeah. You can upgrade it. I just upgraded all of our cameras. I had some older Gen 2 SDI models that I was upgrading, and I noticed a significant difference in the RTSP streaming, plus the addition of the ability to live stream directly to Facebook, which we showed last week.
Right. Fabulous. Let's see what else we have going on here. Going to see if I haven't addressed anything. I love how everybody wants to help us.
Yes. No, honestly, because that whole helping thing was great with the latency on. So OBS has built-in latency on the audio.
Yuta wants to know how to get the new firmware. And Corey as well.
Yep. Anyone who wants the new
contact
firmware,
support?
you need to email support@PTZOptics.com. They'll send you the firmware and an instruction sheet that you need to follow to the T. It's not very hard to do. It takes about 5 minutes. But you need to follow those instructions.
Support@PTZOptics.com, or just go ahead and call us if you want.
Kenny's asking if NDI upgrade will work on the Gen 2 HDMI version. There is no HDMI version. All the PTZOptics cameras have HDMI with the exception of the Z cams. So all of our cameras, even the SDI and the USB, all have HDMI. The difference is there's one with a USB port and one with an SDI port. The SDI ones will get the first update on the NDI, because those are the ones that really have the PoE and the need for it. Mm-hmm. But yes, the USB models will have an NDI firmware update, and so will the Z-cams eventually, hopefully early 2018.
And nothing will be taken away with the NDI cameras, which is important.
Except for the fact that you won't be able to use RTSP, because that's essentially what the NDI HX is using.
Dan says, I wanted the social media comments on our live streams, and I was using OBS. The problem is I recently built a Ryzen computer, and I've seen on the vMix forums that it's not playing well with vMix. Buying PTZOptics cameras for the home studio. Woohoo!
Woohoo! So you're using OBS. You want to be able to integrate social media. Here's an idea, and something we haven't talked about, is so vMix Social is really one of the best tools for integrating social media with lower third titles. I really think it's a super simple tool. Works with Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram, and they're really easy to use, and you can queue them up. It works on a web server. It's been built very well. So if you buy a $60 license of vMix, the HD version, I think that's the HD version, it includes NDI. You can send out the alpha channel input of that, or even easier, send out a green screen image with the lower third over it, and then run the chroma key on your OBS, and you'll get the
that will be helpful for
media
you
titles.
for what you were asking earlier. after you render your After Effects MP4 as a lower third. Ronald has a interesting question. He is switching to 2 HD cameras with vMix. He's wondering if NDI, since he's only recording at this point in time, is NDI overkill for someone, just recording?
Yeah, well, you do have to pay for the NDI license. So if you're just recording, you may not need it. If it's not completely apparent to you that you need it, I would say you probably don't need it. Some of the things that are nice about it are the ability to run low latency video and audio directly over the network to Wirecast, vMix, XSplit, Livestream Studio, OBS, all of them. It seems like OBS might be the most difficult to use because we already had issues. I thought we should
But we're
have more
not
time.
as comfortable with it as maybe Wirecast or vMix.
Yeah,
So
I didn't realize it had a latency issue with the audio, but the question was about OBS? What was the question about?
no, you kind of covered it.
Okay.
Your answer was kind of like,
Yeah, if you don't know if you need it,
no, you might not.
You're probably fine.
Here's one for you.
Is there a delay when directly connecting a PTZ camera to an HDMI display or mixer? Do you guys recommend vMix over OBS or Wirecast?
Nice.
So for that one, so what you're talking about here is what I believe if you're connecting to an HDMI display, and let's say it's a big display, there could be about 100 milliseconds of latency, 60 to 100.
I'm trying to picture what that looks like. Is that something that's really noticeable?
So it's a tenth of a second.
Okay.
So what will happen is if the camera has a little bit less than a tenth of a second of latency inherent in all the outputs, apparently NDI is going to be even less, but we'll have to see about that. But I was on my stopwatch, I was seeing anywhere from 100 to 200 milliseconds. The last time we checked, which was when we thought we were going to have the NDI so long ago. But
we missed the mark on that one.
we've been told 60 to 100 milliseconds is inherent in any of the outputs. That's very low. That's what you're seeing right now on our cameras. And no one can notice the difference on lip sync. It's so minimal that you wouldn't even adjust your audio to fix that. And of course, in some scenarios like churches where you've got a huge projector up there and showing the pastor, if the audio's off, it's like it can give you a headache.
So there might not be so much of a difference between Wirecast, vMix, or OBS for this use.
From the software perspective, it looks like OBS being free, not having a dedicated support team and all of that, it seems to have some latency inherent in the audio that may be able to be fixed with an audio delay. But you certainly don't want to be using OBS if you're doing image magnification to a giant display, because that you can't have audio delay. Yes, audio delay probably would have fixed what we were doing up there. But if we're in a big scenario where there can't be any audio delay, then we're going to have some issues. Now, the next thing I'll mention is, so the cameras themselves have 60 to 100 milliseconds of latency. If there's anything in line that adds more latency, that's when it starts to become an issue. So, for example, if you're running the PTZOptics camera into vMix or Wirecast, that's the 60 milliseconds. But then if Wirecast is running into another piece of hardware like a Blackmagic switcher or a distribution amplifier, you plug one HDMI into a distribution amplifier and you get 6 out, that's what's called a DA, and you have 6 displays, sometimes that piece of equipment can also add 100 or 200 milliseconds of latency. And that's when you get into the scenario of having an unwanted amount of latency latency. So what I tell customers is to, if you can, knowing that the camera has 60 milliseconds, which is an amount that almost every camera has, what you have to look at is that's when it becomes important to buy high quality capture devices, higher quality distribution amplifiers, HDMI splitters and things. If you're using the least expensive one that you found on Amazon, that's probably the weak link. And there's a reason why AJA capture cards, Asia they're called, capture cards are twice as expensive as a Blackmagic card, because it has lower latency and it's built for broadcast and these types of things. So what I would recommend doing, if you're doing a place where you're bringing in 2 or 3 PTZOptics cameras and then sending 1 or 2 video outputs to these large displays, look at the Magewell, the AJA, and the higher end, even the AJA Corvid input cards that also include outputs. So it's an input-output card. And those, without even having to touch Wirecast or vMix, can do input-output before it even comes into a software on your computer, which is going to add a little bit of latency.
Is there SDI delay on video from PTZOptics cameras?
Yes, that's what we were just talking about. There's about 60 milliseconds, and it's not enough to notice. It's very minimal. We don't compensate it against our Shure because you have to be realistic. The Shure wireless microphones coming into a Behringer, coming out the USB to that, probably has 60 seconds of latency too, so they match up perfectly. But yes, there is a little bit of latency. It's less than a frame.
Ronald is working with Kevin on a producer kit. We're excited to see how that kit turns out for you, Ronald. Let us know if you need any help or advice with that.
Yeah, take a look at the manual. They did a really good job writing the manual for the producer kit because we knew that a lot of people are going to be installing these themselves, putting these systems together in churches, and the step-by-step guide from connecting cameras, and it's written fairly ubiquitous between whatever software you might have, whether it's Wirecast, vMix, or OBS. Although I did not know this audio thing with OBS. We might need to start putting that in some of our documentation. If that's truly the issue.
Right. Dan says, I was going to order the Gen 2 cameras and then purchase the NDI updates for each. Will I be able to start streaming right away, or is NDI not ready for a professional stream? We get from 8 to 20,000 views on each show.
Wow. Well, and the NDI firmware, the reason why it's taking so long is because every, dot needs to be checked. And, from the legal team at NewTek to literally our engineers and the manufacturing process all together, it's really taking us a long time because NDI has been out for a long time. A lot of things work really well. A lot of people have report issues, and sometimes I don't think that that's an NDI issue with the OBS thing. I think it's an OBS issue. I really do. So sometimes NDI is getting a black eye for something that it's not even its fault. So,
but when we do release NDI, we can assure you that it's ready for your streams,
yes,
for how professional they might be. We're not going to release it until it's prepared for proper presentation.
Yeah, and literally to the finest of details, where we're talking about being able to use the NDI protocol to adjust the iris or the focus, which is pretty cool and will allow you to use an Xbox controller to control the cameras from any Windows or Mac PC. A lot of features are going to be brought to the table when this is released. So I don't want to say that NDI is not ready for prime time. Our cameras are going to be NDI HX, which is high efficiency, meaning it's a H.264 high bit rate, high quality encoder. I'm really excited to use it. Everything that I've seen is amazing. I'm just, stressed that it's not out yet.
Yeah, that's the only thing that we're worried about.
You can go ahead and get the cameras now. That's the good news. They're PoE. You can stream from them today. The RTSP with the latest firmware is basically ready for the NDI license to be applied. So the RTSP that NewTek is using is already in the camera. It'll be a great start. But I still think, and a lot of professional broadcasters agree with me, that the uncompressed SDI 3G, right, 3G, 3 gigabits, is still going to be much higher quality than a compressed, 10 megabits NDI HX. So it's going to allow a lot of functionality, a lot of usability, a lot of new features. But if you're getting 8,000 to 10,000 views, you might want to look at a high quality capture card and still using SDI. It should be a replacement, but I haven't seen it. It's not out yet. I still think that a lot of people are going to want at least SDI as a backup. That's the other great thing. SDI as a backup, NDI as a, cake that you can eat too.
Delight says, can you use multiple Blackmagic shuttles without latency in order to stream live and connect using your graphics card to a projector while...
No, that is the problem. That multiple Blackmagic shuttles, that's the problem.
While using
right
vMix.
There. No, you can't. That's the whole problem. That's exactly the problem. Now, if you're using vMix, there's a lot of settings in there that you can tweak for lower latency. But if you're also sending things to the projector, this is what we were talking about, when things are going up to the projector where we can't have any latency. Those Blackmagic shuttle intensity shuttles, that's where the latency is coming in. That's a very, I don't want to say cheap, but it's a very affordable, lower end capturing device that's going to add latency. I think it's for capturing content. I don't think it's for image magnification. Fortunately, you have to pay for that, and people spend so much time on the designs of these things. And how much latency are you seeing when you're using two Blackmagic shuttles in line and vMix? Because I would imagine that if you can get rid of those Blackmagics somehow, I'm not sure how you're using them or why, but it's those extra devices that get in line that add the additional latency where it finally starts to add up to something that's noticeable.
Dan, of course you can call us. Go to PTZOptics.com to find our phone number.
Yep, our phone number is right there. You can always chat us right on Facebook. There's a chat right on the website that gets you directly to our support team. And we're excited for Friday's show. It's either going to be with Stephen Haley of the Tech Buzz. Remember we saw his studio a couple years ago?
Stephen Healy or Andrew Haley.
Yeah, you're right.
Those names sound pretty familiar.
No, it's Stephen Haywood. Sorry, Stephen Haywood.
Stephen Haywood. Oh, we're getting them mixed up because they're both H's.
Yeah. But they're going to be fun to have on the show. We're going to dig a lot more into Wirecast and all the features that they have, all the brand new features. Hopefully PTZ control soon. And really excited to learn a lot more about Wirecast from those guys. 2 shows in a row. I don't believe the NDI firmware is going to be ready by then. I've stopped asking the engineers at this point.
Sean Reagan's in all caps in the chat saying, it's not released yet.
Yeah.
I'm like, I know.
Yeah, it's not ready.
Not ready, but as we keep stressing, we will not release until it's perfect for you. So you can trust us with that.
Yes, and they might have actually been worried when they saw the automatic broadcast. RTSP and NDI and OBS. They're like, oh no, they're talking about NDI. But we've been talking about NDI for a long time, and understanding and playing with all of these tools is a big part of understanding. It's a big part of why we have this office. And next time we do a studio tour like this, I'm going to have a floor plan of the office and a little dot, like moving, like you see in like a video game, like down the little floor plan. Because
I like that.
The whole point of this office was to show the interconnectivity of the meeting room, the broadcast studio, the reception green screen area, the post-production, the social media, the brainstorming management, the executive office, all these things coming together into a single cohesive
Sean's talking about the NDI firmware upgrade, right?
Yes.
Not just the recent PTZOptics Gen 2 upgrades. Okay.
The recent Gen 2 firmware upgrades are available. Double check with what your firmware is with the support guys, and they'll let you know whether the upgrade is necessary or not. But it made a pretty big difference from some of the older Gen 2s to the newer firmware.
Are these numbers frame rates?
Can PTZ cameras work in 1080 i50? Yes, they can. Michael, if you want to give me a zoomed in shot here, I'll show the bottom of this camera. And this is always the place to look for this kind of stuff. It's pretty small, but it will show, let's see what we got here. So basically, oh, look at that. It's coming in pretty good, though. I can see that. Can you guys see it? There we go. It looks good. All right, good. So you guys can see my serial number, but basically 0 is 1080p 60, 1 is 1080p 50, 2 is 1080i 60, 3 is 1080i 50, 4 is 1080p 60, 1080p 50, 1080p 30, 1080p 25, 1080p 30, 1080p. So there are 2 interlaced, and that's 1080i 60. And just to show you guys what we mean by that, that's the system select button there. So you have to take a tweaker and go click, 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 click to the resolution you want, turn the camera on and off, bop, bop, and you've got the resolution that you've requested. That's how that works. It's a pretty simple process. And I actually had somebody who wanted 480, which is our SD resolution for our video chat application. And we don't go beyond... Oh gosh, we do 480i.
Did you tell him no?
Oh my god.
If you're watching.
He might have needed 480p. It says D and E. Oh my god, I didn't even know we went that low. So we can do 480i.
How low
and
can you go, baby?
I gotta
We
text
can go pretty
Juan
low.
from Stampede Global in Europe and tell him that we can do 480i. Oh gosh, he's probably gonna be pissed. Now, I believe it's only out of the CVBS port to do those lower resolutions.
Ronald says we sometimes feed our single SD camera into our projectors to provide a better view for the audience. Do you think we will have latency issues going from HD to SDI, HD SDI to vMix to projector?
So a couple things there. One is the projector itself. I forgot to mention that.
Oh, Sean said
Check-
yes, but only over the CVBS port.
Yes, on the CVBS port for those analog
Thank
SD
you, Sean.
resolutions. For the so this iMag resolution, one of the biggest offenders is the projector. Do you have a $300 Epson projector, or do you have a really nice Panasonic or higher end Epson? The projector itself, literally check the projector, and literally play a video that shows a counter that says 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or whatever that counts to 100. Take a picture of your laptop and the projected image without even talking about cameras yet. Just take a picture of it, because the projectors are usually actually the number one offender. If you can use an LCD, it's much less usually. Converting things to SDI to HDMI also is possible. Additional latency. These things are really hard to set up. So the best thing to do would be probably to bring...
The projector is high end. And
It's a high-end projector?
real time currently.
Okay, so the projector's real time. So the projector's not an issue. Good. Because sometimes they've got these low-end BenQ Casio projectors that are adding 2 seconds of latency, and there's no way we can do anything with it. So you've got a high-end projector. It's got low latency as it is. That's very good. So we're starting there. Now we've got 60 milliseconds of latency off the camera, and you're using an SDI to HDMI converter at the projector. It's probably not going to be too bad. I think you'll be okay. I think that's honestly better than trying to use the HDMI and trying to use a distribution amplifier to send it to multiple displays. I've had issues with that a little bit. So I think that you should be fine there. I think assuming your projector is receiving everything in real time, you're going to have probably 100 milliseconds, which is a tenth of a second. It's like 2 frames. Shouldn't be enough to be noticeable without knowing everything. I think that what you've told me, as long as the projector's not adding any latency, you should be fine. We have to talk about image magnification one of these days and have a complete show on that.
I know people are very interested in it.
I'll have to do a show on that for sure.
What length is the max when using HDMI to connect my 2 PTZOptics to the Roland V1 HD to 2 projectors and LCD displays in order to get as less latency as possible?
Okay. So the Roland VHD, the V1 HD, remind me, does that have SDI or HDMI options, or I'm guessing it only has HDMI since that's what you're mentioning? Most people will say 50 feet is the maximum. Apparently TriCaster, the NewTek guys, has a 100-foot cable that they certify to work. So if you need to go 100 feet, the NewTek cable is not going to be cheap, but apparently they can go 100 foot. I was always told, coming up from an audiovisual company for 10 years, that 35 to 50 feet was always the max. If you're going to go 100 feet or more, which, once you get to those longer distances, you might want to think about using an HDMI to Cat5 extender, which will basically what that is, and I think I have one around here somewhere, but basically what it does is it takes a short HDMI cable from the camera to a box that boosts the signal, sends it down Cat6 or Cat7, actually Cat7, shielded Cat7, and sends it down the signal.
It's getting real techy.
And then receives it, and the optics that basically all HDMI video signals are zeros and ones. It's all zeros and ones. It's all binary, right? And so what happens is, as it goes down that cable, that HDMI cable, there's an optical reader at the other side. And the optical reader, if it starts mistaking zeros for ones as they're all coming through so quickly, that's when the signal basically the chain just breaks. So the chain either just breaks or it degrades and it starts to flicker. So that's what's happening when you're getting a flickering or a bad signal. It's the zeros and ones from the optical readers.
They're
And
just
there's the Roland is a really nice switcher, so it's probably receiving the video. It probably has good connectors in there. Our cameras are sending a very clean feed, is what we call it. But if you're going anything over 50 feet, you can go with the NewTek cable, which is apparently 100, or think about just doing a high quality at Luna, Crestron, Xtron, HDMI over Cat extender, which boosts the signal on both sides, and then you can just run Ethernet in between.
We're getting some comments. Love to Mr. Michael,
Oh,
the guy mixing the show.
Yep, we've got the guy
Hey.
mixing the show now. It was so much
Another one.
harder for me to come up with these answers to questions on the fly before.
You do so well.
Before when I was trying to mix at the same time,
Oh, yes.
because I was losing
That can
my
be
train
really
of thought.
hard.
So big difference
You
here.
can provide better answers, better content when
Yeah.
our focus is directed mainly at you. And having two people helps even more because we can pay attention to the chat somewhat.
Yeah.
Corey
you've got
and
full
Thomas
control.
are saying around 10 to 12 feet they wouldn't extend an HDMI cable any farther. Than
Is that Corey Benke?
Corey Thompson.
Yeah.
And Corey
Yeah.
says that the boxes can add latency,
The Cat 5 boxes?
the HDMI extender.
Depending on the one that you have. Now, there's also something called an HDMI equalizer. And what that will do is it basically just takes HDMI in and boosts the signal and makes it more clean HDMI out. Magewell is actually coming out with one that apparently, now I was just talking to Magewell yesterday, we really like those guys. They were saying that not only will it equalize the signal, it will actually fix a bad HDMI signal. And because of the optics in there, that reading the zeros and ones are
We
so
like it.
good. It'll fix the HDMI. I've never heard of a product that can do that if
Maybe
there's
my
a bad
X keys,
HDMI.
I would do like an applause for Magewell.
Yeah, let's give them an applause. They were just here yesterday. We were having lunch. Great people, working on a studio in Reading, Pennsylvania. Very great guys.
Right next door.
To have, just a few blocks away. So no, you're right. So depending on the quality of the HDMI extenders, there could be latency, especially the ones, again, don't go with the cheapest thing on Amazon if you're worried about latency. Really buy something that you can
Invest in it.
return if you don't need, if you're getting too much latency, but look for a higher end reputable company because that's the reason why it's so expensive. It's the little things,
Right?
minimal latency.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget, if you haven't joined the user group yet, head to facebook.com/groups/PTZOptics Pals so we can continue the conversation. We'd love to have you be a part of our little family.
Take care, everybody. Thanks for joining today.